Hi, this is your host Sapil Bhartiya and welcome to another episode of TFI Let's See. And today we have with us Peter Corless, Director of Product Marketing at StarTree. Peter, it's great to have you on the show.
Thanks. It's great to be here. And we got some exciting stuff. I hope people are really interested in observability and real-time analytics because we got a lot to talk about.
Yeah, and that is our audience. But before we talk about this specific announcement and the demo that you're going to show us, quickly remind our viewers, what is StarTree all about?
So a couple of years ago, people wanted to find out information in real time. I don't know if this is also applicable to you. I know I'm definitely of this ilk, but basically if a web browser or a mobile app is taking 5-10 seconds, I just busy out, I go do something else. I have no time to sit there and wait for things that are sitting and spinning, right? So some people call this the on-demand economy. Other people call this the impatience economy, but everybody wants everything right now. We don't want to wait tomorrow for information. We don't want to even wait an hour for information. And this was true at a company called LinkedIn, which of course we all use. And LinkedIn wanted to be able to provide insights into who viewed my profile down to the second. And they found that traditional tools and services just did not keep up with that kind of pace of business. And so they invented a database to be able to do this kind of real-time analytics in a way that was affordable and performant. Data warehouses weren't going to do this, and traditional transactional databases weren't going to do this. So that's where Apache Pinot came out of. It was launched out of LinkedIn and became an open source project through the Apache Software Foundation. And Apache Pinot is at the heart of everything that StarTree does. Our service is a more consumable database as a service, fully managed version of Apache Pinot. So that saves you on operational staff and overhead. It saves you on having to do all the security and the updates and all that kind of stuff on your own. We're a professional team that'll back your team as you just get back to coding and you want to build your own real-time data analytics apps. So that's basically what we are and do. And I can go into a few more parts here. The other things that make this a complete solution is that you have to have an upstream method of streaming your data. And so that will be maybe like an Apache Kafka or a Red Panda or an Apache Pulsar. It's going to be one of these systems that can produce this information in real time at maybe millions of objects per second. We'll consume that. We have a very scalable way to consume objects in real time. We can also backfill data from batch data sources so you can get a complete view of your data. And now that's all on the upfront, ingestion data pipeline. You also need to have ways of visualizing your data. And so we have Tableau integration, we have Streamlit and Superset integration as well. Embeddable, if you want to do bespoke mobile applications, we have an embeddable integration as well. So you have to be able to ingest data quickly, that's for high data freshness. And then you want to be able to visualize data and query data with very low latency. So that's really what's at the heart of Apache Pinot and at the heart of StarTree.
Can you also talk about StarTree's association with not only Apache Pinot, but also open source in general?
Well, what we're seeing is that people are making their own stacks, right? This is an open data world. And so, for instance, we already talked about Apache Kafka. It is basically the plumbing of so many real-time data enterprises. You also have Delta Lake, right? And other data standards for the data warehouses. We can ingest from both of those. And then the other things in open source that we're looking at is you need to do transformations on this data. It may not have come to you in the format that you want to do queries against. And so we're seeing things like a Kafka, Flink, Pinot, what we call the KFP stack, being more of like this kind of de facto standard of how organizations are dealing with real-time data these days. Kafka for the streaming, Flink for the transformations, and then Pinot for the querying.
One more thing with the open source is that open source can easily solve day one problem. And in the data space, we see that Berkeley has kind of monopoly there, right? A lot of projects came from, Berkeley. But as I said, open source solves day one problem, but there's also massive and very vibrant commercial community around, because commercial players are the one that enables all the players who may not have all the resources So talk about the role that StarTree is playing in the commercialization of some of these open source projects.
Sure. So again, we still have the traditional stakeholders of the Apache Pinot community, and that's LinkedIn, that's Uber, Stripe. These are very large organizations that have significant teams internally, and so they can run their own stack. They can operate Apache Pinot either self-managed on premises or even in the cloud, but they can manage it. A lot of organizations don't have that deep technical bench. They don't have thousands of engineers to throw at a problem. And so again, one of the main things that we provide is this service from the first the sizing and specking of how big a cluster you might need, all the way through the ongoing operations and customer success. So StarTree provides a tremendous force multiplier for companies that need to be able to do real-time analytics, but don't have years to roll this stuff out. Again, LinkedIn invented this. So they did everything in-house to begin with. But you want to operate maybe like a LinkedIn or a Stripe or an Uber. Like you want to be able to fit into that real-time analytics space, but you want to get a jump start, and we will help you with that.
Now, can we talk about the announcement that you folks are making today?
So what we're talking about today is the fact that StarTree, we already announced that we would be doing an integration of real-time analytics with observability tools. We announced that back in May. But today we're going to be demoing for the public for the first time our integration with Grafana. We will have StarTree acting as a Prometheus compatible backend database with a Grafana integration.
Excellent, thank you. So let's get started with the demo.
All right, let's pull that up.
So we'll begin with creating a data source for Apache Pinot within Grafana. Users can enter their own authentication tokens, like an HTTP bearer authentication in this case. Next, we'll grab a URL for the Apache Pinot controller, and we'll put in the database name. Great, now let's explore the data we have. Well, let's look at a time range. In this case, we can select the last 6 months. We can check out the complex website table, and boom, we have a graph. Now let's zoom in on date range. You can see that we're looking at clicks during this date range, but let's change that to errors or views, or let's go back to clicks. And for this data, let's get an aggregation, an average. Though we can also look at a max or sum, and there we can do a group by country, bam. We can click through to see specific countries, China, India, Korea, the US. We can also do multi-dimensional queries, what platform and browser are being used. We can also add a filter. We're looking at China. Let's drill down and look just at the desktop users. We can also look specifically at Chrome browser users. What do we see? What if we remove this filter? What do each of the browsers show us? And what if we look at all platforms? Now let's look at the code behind this. There's your PinotQL query. StarTree will also be supporting PromQL, TraceQL, and LogQL because we know these dialects are vital to observability. You can also see the specific data points to generate the line graph above. You can even go in and edit the query manually, adding a country column. Run query, and immediately you can see that a country column was added to the output. Change from table to time series, and there you go. There's your country breakout. Now let's set up a Grafana dashboard and add a new panel. Again, we'll use our complex website table. We'll again focus on the last 6 months, highlighting a range within that. Grafana provides suggestions for how to display this time series data. We'll select an area chart. Or perhaps we'll use this cool color gradient to show when things are getting really hot. Or perhaps we want to see a stacked area chart. Or classic gauges. Or a pie chart. And here's the SQL behind it, which, of course, you can edit this SQL directly. Here you can see that we're adding country to the group by. And we can view that as a table. So while users of Grafana are aware of all these capabilities in that platform, the magic we're performing here is that Apache Pinot is behind all of these queries, not the typical time series databases on the back end. I've seen articles talking about the issues with scaling time series systems past a terabyte or even to the tens of terabytes range, whereas I know that there are use cases for Apache Pinot with data sets orders of magnitude larger. I heard Uber the other day say that they store upwards of 12 petabytes in Apache Pinot. The main issue here is scalability, which is vital when you're talking about mobile device monitoring, or IoT, where you have potentially millions or hundreds of millions of endpoint devices, each with granular, multidimensional observability data. So it's not just about an integration with Grafana. We're talking about a new platform, a new way to be able to performantly and affordably scale your operations. With StarTree, powered by Apache Pinot, you can eliminate multiple disparate observability databases for logs, metrics, and traces. All the data is there in the same scalable platform.
Excellent. Thank you so much. And you folks are, doing this demo today. Talk a bit about who are you targeting with this solution?
We're not an observability company, right? If you're looking for a full-blown observability stack, there are many great vendors out there. What we're seeing, though, and this came to us from our customers, is our customers said, we love using you for our business analytics. It's been so great. It's performant, it's scalable, it's cost-effective. Can we also use you for observability? And so what happened is that with the advent of OTel, open telemetry, people are doing what's known as a disaggregated observability stack. Rather than going to a vendor lock-in where they buy everything from the visualization tools down to the device agents, all from the same vendor, people are taking a look now at picking and choosing different layers. Maybe they like one vendor for the agents and the collection system. Maybe they like another visualization tool, right? There are people who love Grafana for visualization. There are also people who love Kibana for visualization. Where this came from was that Cisco Systems used Apache Pinot, the open source, and wrote their own Kibana and Grafana integrations. And then once one open source company was doing that with Apache Pinot, the other customers like, well, we want to do that too. And we said, of course. And so we're now building this capability on top of StarTree Cloud. So you get it as an out-of-the-box feature. If you want to do your business analytics, you can do all that. Your anomaly detection, we already have that baked in with Third Eye. And now we're saying, you want to do observability too? Definitely. And we're beginning with this Grafana integration. And you're going to see us over time then make sure that Apache Pinot's engine at the heart of StarTree can also talk PromQL, which is the Prometheus query language for metrics. There's also LogQL, which is for logs, and TraceQL. And there's other open source databases that support all three of those, but they're all individual databases. We're going to do all of that in one. And because Apache Pinot has a multi-stage query engine, you can now do potential joins across those tables and do interesting correlations between your logs, metrics, and traces. So it helps collapse all of these disparate databases into a single platform. Because it's an efficient platform, a column store, you get massive cost savings on the storage. And because we were designed for fast analytics, you get real-time, fresh data results, and you get low query latency at very high concurrency. We have customers out there driving queries against Apache Pinot, StarTree Cloud, 10,000, maybe even up to 100,000 queries per second. And again, these are not just single keys that you're writing like in a key value store. This is full table or range scans. So when we talk queries per second, we're talking about analytical queries, aggregations, roll-ups, things like that.
And you also said, that StarTree is not in the business of observability. That's very true. Also, if you look at the modern cloud interviewer, it's not as easy as the old days of LAMP stack. There are so many moving pieces and a lot of things overlap. So how do you when you talk about observability, how you also want to ensure that you are not seen as a player in this space because you work with a lot of partners in the space, because then people start expect more from a StarTree, but that is not your space. So can you talk about where do you fit in the overall picture when whether C-level executives or developers are building their observability, how they should look at a StarTree, how they should look at Grafana, and how they should look at other solutions in the space?
So we see this disaggregated stack as having roughly 5 layers. Again, everybody's model is going to differ a little bit, but you have your visualization layer at the top. You have your query layer, which again is both your query language, et cetera. And then you have your storage layer. Underneath that, you have the collection layer for observability and the agent layer, right? We're not trying to be in the agents or in the collection layer. And there's plenty of people that are already in the visualization layer. And again, we want to be compatible with the query layer languages that are already available. PromQL, TraceQL, LogQL. We want to comply with those. So we're really where we're going to be is in the query efficiency and storage layer, right? So fast aggregations, which you get out of StarTree, the high concurrency, what we call user-facing analytics, where, for instance, if you're just building an internal organizational dashboard, you know pretty much how many people are going to be taking a look at this. What we're seeing, especially with, let's say, IoT, I have a doorbell that's on the internet, right? And when you have millions or tens of millions of end user consumers that might be looking up data, any of them could want to see, well, how is my IoT connected device performing? And they'll be generating queries against this data. So we call that user-facing or customer-facing analytics. And that's where query concurrency can be unbounded and can be stochastically variable. Like all of a sudden, everybody's querying their doorbell, right? And so these are the kinds of things that Apache Pinot, I think, solves for very well. That we will be able to, again, many people do the internal facing analytics perfectly reasonable. But the external facing, that kind of thing is exactly why Apache Pinot was invented. And as we see companies doing more as a service versions of tools and systems, especially with IoT, we believe that the observability for those customers is also going to see orders of magnitude greater utility. People are going to externalize their observability tools so that customers have a sense of their own ownership of their devices. They want to see the performance of what they're paying for.
And how folks can access this solution? Can you talk about how people can try it? It's available, or the pricing model?
Yes. Well, the pricing model you're going to love. It's free. That we have a free tier that's available, not a 30-day free trial, not a 15-day free trial. We have a full free tier that is available for anybody who wants to get started with real-time analytics. It's built on a serverless platform, which again is another thing that we bring to the open source. Like it's not just, install it on your laptop. You want a fully managed system and you want it to be done very easily consumable. And so we did a serverless version. And so everybody can roll up an Apache Pinot cluster of their own, and they get about 100 gigabytes worth of storage for free. And you can run it as long as you like that way. You can even collaborate with people. You can invite a friend. If one person's doing maybe the queries and you're doing the data modeling, you can collaborate in this kind of freewheeling developer prototyping system. And then when you're ready and you say, I think we got something that works, you can then click to deploy this on a production cluster. So we work very closely with our product-led growth team. And if you want to get started, you get started today. Just go to StarTree.ai. And again, just click on the start for free.
Peter, thank you so much for taking time out today, joining me. Not only talk about StarTree, your approach towards solving observability problem with customer while maintaining the balance, giving them flexibility is really important, and also access to democratizing access to these kind of technologies. So thanks for all those great insights. And I would love to have you back on the show again. Thank you.
Great. Thank you very much for the time.